So I'm David Hill and I'm here at the Tabernacle in Paris Square, West London. And I'm here with Chris Peckings.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening. Chris Peckings here, the younger of the Peckings brothers from Peckings Record Shop and Label.
And we're going to be talking about the history of Peckings, what Peckings has brought music-wise and culture-wise to West London, and to the UK. From Studio One Records from right back in the day, right through to today with Chris and his brother Duke, reworking rhythms, forwarding young up-and-coming artists and getting behind them. So can you tell me a little bit about your father, when he grew up in West Kingston and who he was hanging with at the time?
Well, my dad grew up in West Kingston, George Leroy Price, aka Peckings. Basically, he was involved in the early stages of sound systems, but even before that, him and his friend Coxsone Dodd, my dad grew up with all the greats, Don Drummond, Rico, Tan Tan.
The trombone players and the trumpet player,
yeah,
okay.
From the Scatterlights. He had people, he knew Eric Deans was like a member of the family. I don't know how, but he was connected. So my dad used to go to...
This is the talent showcase guy,
the talent
right?
showcase guy and the big band leader who everyone started playing with, like all the guys I've mentioned, Roland Alfonso, all of them started playing sessions for...
And this would be when, roughly?
Oh, this is in the 40s, going
Okay.
into the 50s, basically. The jazz, so my dad, all of them, they love jazz music. Then that's
But Coxsone was a jazz man as well, right?
jazz man. Duke Reid was a jazz man.
Yeah.
All of them, I think what it is, obviously before for the dancers it was rhythm and blues, Louis Jordan, Roscoe Gordon, Fats Domino. They loved that kind of, like yourself, early, I like the fast music. That's what they loved in Jamaica. So on the sound system of Coxsone, that's what they played. So I think at the time you had people like Tom the Greats, Sebastian, who was before...
Tom Wong, right?
Yeah, Tom Wong, who was before Coxsone Dodd and Duke Reid.
And this was, of course, the connection with West London as well.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how it all come about. Tom Wong, Duke Vin, and Count Suckle, who are all my dad's friends from Jamaica. Count Suckle, incidentally, is my godfather, the first black nightclub owner in London, friends with everyone. Everyone would go to the Q Club, it was just a spot.
Where was that in London?
It was in Praed Street,
Right.
Paddington. So Muhammad Ali hanged out there religiously. He was there, he spent all his time. You name him.
I've seen photos of Buster there as well, Prince Buster.
Even brought over people like Solomon Burke,
Uh-huh.
the Temptations did gigs in there. You name it, everyone performed because he set it up basically for the GIs who was in England. Because he
okay.
used to play at Roaring Twenties.
Right.
He opened Roaring Twenties, not as his club, but the DJ there. And Duke Vin played at the Flamingo. And that's where you get people like Georgie Fame and all them.
And that was in Soho, right? The Flamingo.
Soho, yeah. So it was that. But all prior to that, my dad was in Jamaica, and he loved of music. And my dad was, Coxsone really was like his younger brother, because my dad was a man of West Kingston. He grew up in all the elders of his time, whether they were gangsters or good. My dad was that man. He was a go-to man. So my dad was like, he brought Coxsone under his wing and brought him into that inner circle in West Kingston, because he's like 5 or 6 years younger than my dad. So he even said to me, your dad was like my brother. Even though I got older brothers, your dad was my brother more than even them, because your dad showed me the way. So yeah. So when they started the sound system in the 50s, Coxsone would go and do farm work, and he'd send the music to my dad. All the rhythm and blues.
The farm work, this was in Jamaica or?
No, in America.
In America.
A lot of them, even Bob
So like
Marley.
Bob, yeah, okay.
Bob, yeah, he went to Delaware or wherever, and so Coxsone would go and get the rhythm and blues. He'd be out there, he'd send them to my dad. Now at the time, my dad would keep the dances with Count Machuki. He's like the first mic man. And all over the places. And my mum, see, a lot is not said about my mum, but she's quite pivoted in the whole thing, because she helped. Because she's the best friend of Lucille Reid, who is Duke Reid's wife. And that was Coxsone's biggest rival, Duke Reid. Even though my dad and Coxon were close, there was still a lot of love between all of them because of the wives being so close. So yeah, they used to keep dancing, and I think the first ever dance, which would be like, I wouldn't say a clash, but a sound system as we know it as a clash today, my dad kept it with Coxon and Duke Reid.
Right.
That would have been the first one. He said it was ridiculous, rammed the whole
And that
street.
would be when roughly?
About 52,
Right.
53, something like that.
And this is kind of Chocamo Lawn time, this sort of
Yeah,
thing?
you had Forester's Hall, you had Chocamo Lawn, you had Bournemouth Beach, you had so many places, you know, that was going on. So yeah, he kept it. I can't remember where he said he kept it. I think it was on Wildman Street.
And because they were such big jazz men, this is how so much of the ska, which was the first Jamaican music after a shuffle really, to come.
Yeah.
That's why there was so much jazz influence in ska, I guess.
Yeah, because jazz is the thing, because I think what had happened basically, in America they stopped making the rhythm and blues. So then the Jamaicans still liked the rhythm and blues.
Because the taste changed in the States,
The taste
right?
changed in the States, but it never changed, so that's when you got Clue J and the Blues Busters. What's the guy who played the piano again? Theophilus Beck, all of those. That's when you got all that kind of, so Jamaicans were making their own rhythm and blues.
Monty Alexander as well, all these guys.
And that's how great they were. So then I think like, because you got to remember people like Roland Alfonso, the Jamaican, but they went, a lot of the Jamaicans when they did work in Cuba, Panama, so there's an influence of Latin music that came into Jamaica, like Mongo Santa Maria, and obviously they loved their jazz. So that's why you listen to a lot of early ska. It's like covers.
Well, Coconut Rock's a cover of Mongo Santa Maria.
That's right. And loads of them. So it was Jamaican. One thing I could say about the Jamaican musicians at that time, they were really good. So my dad was even really close to, you had these guys called the Guinea Brothers, and they're not really known, but in Jamaica around musicians like Don Drummond, Roland, they're like probably one of the greatest musicians that ever come out of Jamaica, but no one ever really knew about it. I think some of them went to America, some of them played with like, what's his name, the big band leader from America. What's the big band leader?
Ellington.
Duke Ellington, you know, and then you had, who's the other guy who does the album with Ravi Shankar, Jamaican. Oh man.
You got me now.
Yeah, you know, you've got the album. He's very famous jazz musician, and there's an album with him and Ravi Shankar together. They're both on the sleeve.
Can't think of those.
I can't think of him. I'll come back to him. It'll come back to me. It's the Appleton flavour, the smell getting to me. Yeah, so they're really influenced by American, but then they made it their own. So even when you listen to the jazz versions of some of the ska, I think the ska walks all over it. Sorry to be biased jazz fans. But
you know, the ska started coming in the very early 60s. It really kind of took proper grip, probably what, 62, something like this.
Yeah, like a little bit like,
But your dad had already come over here by then, right?
Yeah, he came over
was
by...
60?
Yeah, 1960 he came to London, and basically that's when it started really to take off, the production side of it. But because he grew up with all of them, like Roland and all of those guys, he was like, especially with Coxon, like, he told me he was kind of heartbroken when my dad was coming to London, but his love of his life, my mum, had come 58, so he yearned to be with her. So he
I
came,
didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, so he came over, and first thing is like all the producers at that time, because don't forget, my dad is the one who kind of brought Prince Buster into, at one stage in Jamaica, in Coxon Sound, it was my dad, Lee Perry, Buster, Machuki, so that, can you imagine?
And this is Buster doing security for the sound,
Buster
right?
doing door work, then he was inside, and so there was all together as one sound, and my dad was the only one, because he came to England before the production thing blew up, who didn't produce, so Duke Reid, Lee Perry, Buster and Coxon, and for that period of time, they're the four greatest producers. Like Striker come after, and that, as great as he is, he just come after that generation. Yeah, so he came to London, the things started to take off. In London, you had a load of sound system people who...
So this is guys who've come over, say Windrush,
Yeah.
and have started replicating the sounds of Jamaica,
From Jamaica.
over here.
Over here.
Because they had problems getting into venues where you
Yeah,
could hear
they,
music,
they wouldn't
right?
hire
This
them
was
in
the thing,
places.
yeah.
My dad kept dances around here, McGregor Road, and places like that with Duke.
This is the Blue Spot days,
This is
right?
the Blue Spot days.
Yeah.
So you had Duke Vin here, you had the Eunice here, you had Suckle here, and they were really the big two, Suckle and Duke Vin. And my dad started to get the records from Coxon, first person to get his stuff here, even Duke Reed stuff.
And this is early 60s?
Early 60s.
Yeah.
And then he started to peddle it around, go to people who he knew, people used to find him who he knew, they'd come to the house.
So he was basically distribution and sales for Coxon Records in the UK?
In the UK. He was the only one. Coxon wouldn't sell his records to no one.
And just to be clear on this, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, Coxon's music, Studio One, is the most important music to come out of Jamaica of all time.
Most
I mean,
definitely.
that's, without that,
I would say that's
it's
the
a
blueprint.
different
I mean, the
game.
other labels are good, but Coxon
It's-
just had the best team. He's like the Jamaican Motown,
Totally.
basically. So, yeah, give him his props. But Peckings is the one who helped push the engine, helped him from Jamaica. My dad used to send him parts for studio, used to do all kinds of things for him. So it's not like that. I've used to send him records too. So things like, what's that track called again?
Well, some of the British things, like the Georgie Fames
Yeah,
and things like this.
yeah,
and,
because he wanted all those stuff. They liked those stuff. He had a shop.
Well, I guess that's how the Kenny Lynch happened, right? With
That's
with
moving away.
Moving away, yeah.
Because Jamaica liked music, no matter where it comes from. It could be gospel, it could be country and western, it could be pop. They just love.
Yeah.
They call it foreign music.
Well, it's just that thing. You go through a record shop in Jamaica and you'll see Jim Reeves, you'll see disco records, and then you'll see, you know, it's all over the place,
I
isn't
see
it? You know.
the Doors, loads of Doors albums. I think, what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? No reggae. I'm finding
Everything you don't want to
the
see.
meters. You found some of the meters in Coxon's
yeah.
record store
Yeah.
upstairs.
Well, he used to distribute a lot of the US music through Jamaica, didn't
Yeah, and he used to press. He was officially pressing for Motown in Jamaica at a certain time. I think they were giving a lot of work to Jamaica.
There was Atlantic as well. They were doing.
Atlantic, they was doing there. So it was like that was a journey. So my dad would get these records, give them to Soundman. His reputation grew. People got to know of him. More and more people came around, and then he used to sell it from the house. I remember. And then my brothers, when he was at work, because my dad had a job, so my brothers or my mum, people used to come around and she'd sell the records to them, and it just grew to my mum. She was instrumental. She'd get fed up, and he went and got a shop in 74.
Just too much traffic, too many soundmen coming.
Soundmen, all hours.
It's going to wear.
All hours
Yeah,
of the night. So you know what I mean.
So this is what leads us up to the first shop.
Yeah.
At 142 Askew Road.
Yeah.
In 74.
74. That's where I met you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started going to that shop in 89 or 90, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like going to school. You know, I'd go in there on a Saturday afternoon, spend 4 or 5 hours in that shop just absorbing information from both sides of the counter, to be honest.
That's
you know.
true, because the people, you learn from people. And I've learned, I'm quite fortunate. I've got 3 older brothers, 1 past, Tony. But at every stage, we've all played a part in the business, you know. Trevor used to work in the store originally when it opened with my dad. I got a bundle of knowledge from him and records. Duke was the dub plate man. Duke used to be on a Saturday, drive around selling records all over.
Well, he was making a lot of them with Groucho, wasn't he, as well,
and,
you know?
Yeah, and he's a dub plate man, so Duke is well known anyway. So he'd go around, I was at school, and then 81, I started getting in the shop on the Saturdays, and then that was it. Didn't really want to go, and then my mum said, go and help your dad, and I went, and then that was it, got the bug, that was it. So after he passed in 94, I kept it going, we moved the shop to where you know it is. But the old shop has got so much history in it. You know, everyone started in there. So many record shops we know today was based on Peckings helping them. Dub Vendor, Hawkeye, M&D.
Well, and people like Rodigan.
Rodigan helped, Rodigan, loads more. I mean, I've served famous people that's come in there, like rock musicians and punk bands and that. They've come and I'm thinking, what, you know, is George there? So they were even going there before me. And I'm thinking, what, this is such and such, and he buys Studio One, and they, yeah, it's kind of like a lot of history to it. Yeah, he helped Rodigan from day one.
And David will be the first one to say that as well.
Yeah, he helped Rodigan, he helped, you know. And my other brothers too, because he was coming around there when they was in the shop, you know, so. And I've got a brother, Tony, he grew up in Jamaica. Him, out in Ellis, Ken Booth, they all grew up together, Cornell. So at one stage you go around Tony's house, you see the Melodians.
So it's really interwoven, this thing,
so
isn't it?
It's all interwoven, so it's got like, because of my dad, it's kind of like, he's the root, and then we're all the branches of what he's created.
And you're carrying on the good works,
yeah,
with, you know, particularly with the shop still going and what you've been doing with the label. I mean, when did you start producing for that?
Well, what happened is, I met Bitty McLean, and in 2004, he basically came to the shop, and then I said to him about building some rhythms. Anyway, he built back a rhythm, and then Duke said to him, you know, we could do more and do the Treasure Isle stuff and do this and do that. And so Duke was really instrumental in setting up the Pecking label from 2004, and that's when it was in 2003.
I think that's when that came, wasn't it? Walk Away From Love.
Walk Away From Love.
Which is...
The album is...
Absolute stone cold classic, 20 years old almost, isn't it?
Yeah, on Bond Street. Yeah. I think that's the... People who didn't know about Pecking started to know about Pecking from then on. Come to the shop.
It just gave it a lot more reach, didn't it?
A lot more reach, especially across Europe, because it was like we brought a younger generation to it by the recordings.
And turning them onto those classic rhythms that we all love, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Because I mean, I've had conversations with all the greats about the label, not just the bitty stuff, like Pat Kelly loved it, he said Duke Reid would love it, Coxon loved the stuff. It wasn't like stuff that... So when you're getting Alton loved it, Alton wanted to do some stuff, but sadly he was ill.
I think the point is though, with these classic rhythms that you're running over sometimes, you're treating them with respect. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people chop them up and they change the sounds, and it's a whole different thing.
You've got to work with it,
It's a different thing.
Yeah, that's what we do. And plus we like to discover new talent and try and do the same thing Coxon Dodd did, or Duke Reid did, or Bunny Lee did, when they brought through new artists. And that's what because you have good artists all over the world. So it's nice to nurture some new talent and bring it home.
And then in the last year, you know, the original shop and your father there was all honoured. I don't know if you can pick up on the camera. There was a blue plaque, Nubian Jack Trust awarded. Yeah. And it says here, helped introduce reggae to the UK and Europe, pioneering record shop, and shop established here in 1974, George Peckings Price. There you go. Yeah, that's the ultimate. And rightly so.
Yeah, that's the ultimate tribute, because a friend of mine works for the council, and he was saying that London, they want to get a bit more, since the Windrush generation, because we've kind of influenced so many things here. When you look at sound systems, how it is, fashion, culture, food, people from the Windrush generation have come here and introduced so much thing where you see today, which is fashionable, and they want to, there's so many people, not just my dad alone, you've got other, you know, people like Daddy Vigo, Hawkeye, Greensleeve just got one the other day, you've got Jetstar, you've got so many people, and Sonny Roberts, so I think he's getting his plaque soon. So many people should really be honoured, because reggae has influenced so many cultures. You've got drum and bass, dubstep, garage, drill, grime, even Afro beats. To that.
Well, and you know, hip hop. If you go back to
hip hop, go back, because that's the other thing. Hip hop also. So reggae's got. I don't think it gets the props it deserves, because when you talk about reggae, people mostly think who's not in it. Just think of Bob Marley, and it's so much bigger than Bob. Bob's great, but there's Dennis Brown, there's out, and there's so much, and we're trying to add to all the greatness of the music.
Yeah, it's a deep well. And
it's a deep well, it's a deep well. As you know, the collector.
All right, well, Chris, thanks very much.
Cheers, bro.
One more cheers, really.